6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Podcast with me, Anna Forsyth, at aforsyth03. We're brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. You'll notice I'm without my co-pilot, Chris, at Lightforce on the Twitter. He's abandoned me because he has, so-called family and so-called vacation. So, it's just me, but no worries because he's been replaced, dare I say, upgraded with our wonderful guest. It's the new Seattle Kraken beat reporter for the Seattle Times. It's Marissa and Jemmy. Welcome, Marissa.
Hello. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks so much for coming. You'll find Marissa at Marissa_and Jemmy on the Twitter. That's right.
Yeah, that's my Twitter.
Cool. So yeah, I guess I should start by saying welcome to the West Coast. How are you finding it?
Oh, I love it here. It's incredible. I'm still getting used to the time zone switch coming from Boston. It's kind of weird. Like it'll be the middle of the day and I see stuff happening at night, but I really love it here.
Okay. Well, that's great. Obviously biased, but I think it's the best coast to be on, but it's definitely different vibes. So take some getting used to, but yeah, we're definitely glad to have you on this side of the coast. We've had quite a few Seattle Kraken kind of people on. We've just had all three hosts from the Sound of Hockey podcast. So our listeners are well used to us, talking about Seattle Kraken. So mainly because we don't want to talk about the Canucks probably. But yeah, great to have you on. So without further ado, we'll dive straight into Rewind and we'll get to how you got here. Yeah, before we get started on the Kraken specific stuff, why don't you just give us a sort of brief rundown of your career, how you got started in sports, what kind of got you interested and why you wanted to move over here, cover Seattle?
Yeah, so I went to Boston University to study journalism. I covered hockey over there. I worked in lacrosse for a while. And I've worked in newspapers ever since. I was at the Boston Globe. I worked for a small paper in Massachusetts called the Newburyport Daily News. I wrote for some lacrosse outlets. And then I went to the Boston Herald and covered the Bruins for a couple of seasons. Then I was freelancing for a bit. So the last year or so, I was in the New York Times, 538, Yahoo, a bunch of places doing a bunch of sports. But I knew I wanted to get back into beat reporting. I wanted to be in the NHL. So when the Seattle Times job opened up, it felt like a perfect fit. And I'm just thrilled it worked out because I love it out here. I was always super interested in going to Seattle. It seemed like a really cool city. And I don't think there's anything cooler than getting to tell the story of a team's first season and really from the ground up. So I'm super excited to be here and really looking forward to what's coming up.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely get that. It's kind of very different going into, from a storied franchise like the Bruins to a brand new franchise that's, the story's unspooling before you. Yeah, how does that compare, how you approach the team? Does it change the way you write or talk about the team in any way?
It's a little bit different because there's not a ton of history to go off of. So a lot of these guys have never played together before. So I'm doing a lot of preseason features before, and a lot of them are about change or coming to Seattle and getting adjusted to things. It wasn't doing Bruins preseason where you talk about last season and how they try to respond to the way whatever happened last year and who's going to play with who. Right now, we haven't even had a look at anyone. So that aspect is different. I'm sure once the season starts, it'll be a lot of the same. It'll be here's what happened in this game. And then you'll have a lot to actually build upon because you'll have results and data in front of you to really do that. So I'm sure once the season begins, it'll start to really feel like any other beat. But for now, it's definitely a lot different because you're just talking about stuff that hasn't happened here yet. Compared to a team that I was covering that had been around since the 1920s.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the difference between, writing freelance and writing as a beat reporter, you might, have more freedom as a freelance to follow your own nose, but it's, you don't have that stability. What has it been like? I know you've only just started, but with the Seattle Times, have they kind of given you wide berth to work in, or is it just very much cover the team? And
well, I've been pretty lucky so far. They've been open to anything. I'm doing women's hockey there, like I've kind of done forever. They let me do a volleyball story last week. I have stuff I'm working on about softball. So once the season starts, it's all cracking, because just from knowing from being on a beat before, like it really takes over. Like it's the only thing you're really doing all the time. So before the season begins, I definitely wanted to get more acclimated in the Seattle sports scene, and it helps me learn like what people are interested in here too. So it's been super fun so far to get involved in all that other stuff. But yeah, once the season gets going, it's really going to be all cracking.
Yeah, definitely. But that's cool that you've been able to explore a little bit as well. Well, why don't we dive straight into the Kraken though? I believe you won in Seattle for the expansion draft. Is that right?
No, I got here about a month later.
Okay. But I mean, as a reporter, we talked about this with John Barr of Sound of Hockey. But there was some interesting expansion draft stuff with all the leaks coming out and then people on Twitter getting annoyed about the leaks. What was your experience of that?
To me, it's like anything else. If you don't want to see stuff, don't be on Twitter. I mean, this is people's jobs. Like, that's what they're getting paid to do. That's how they're like, that's just what they do. Like, if you don't like, you don't have to follow them. Or I thought people were super weird about that. Like, I don't know what you're expecting. Like, why are you following like Frank Saravalli if you don't want to know what's going on? Like, it's kind of silly to me. But it's Twitter, so people have to complain about everything. So I kind of just ignored that.
I mean, good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was nuts too. I mean, maybe I would have not wanted to know, but in that case, I would have stayed off Twitter. Like, it seems pretty easy way to avoid the news. Was there anything about the draft that you thought was like surprising or interesting in terms of the stories that came out of it, or was it pretty run of the mill for you?
I thought they might make a few side deals or make a few trades. So far, you look at the roster, and they're definitely missing like that one piece of a scorer or a top forward. And I thought they might make a trade for someone like that, and they didn't. But it seemed pretty clear their approach, at least for this season, they're not taking any money on. They didn't take the bait on any of those guys. The only big money they've given out is for Grubauer. Which really seems to have genuinely surprised them that he was available. I don't feel like that was in their plans at all. So it feels like they're really sticking to the strategy of not handing out that big money for the most part. So if you look at that, and they've been pretty consistent, and if you look at the expansion draft, they did what has been on brand for them so far. So I guess that's not surprising, but going into it, I definitely thought they'd be making more moves, and there's still time before the season begins. Maybe they will, but as far as the expansion draft goes, that was the only thing that really stood out to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look down that list, and maybe as a casual hockey fan, you've heard of a couple of the names, but it does seem to me like they're sticking to the strategy of building a fan base, the quote unquote the right way through, diverse hiring and just good hockey sense rather than maybe the big star names coming in.
Yeah, for sure. Like, they didn't take any of those guys. When you think about who was rumored, like everyone from like Carey Price to James Van Riemsdyk, like there were so many names, and people that Matt Dumba for a while before the Wild did everything with their roster. Like, there were so many names. Vladimir Tarasenko was available. Yeah. Like, there are so many guys, and they didn't go for any of them. So, I mean, kind of credit to them for sticking to their guns and doing what they really think they're going to do. And I mean, it's not like they don't have good players. They have a lot of really good players who could continue to get better, like Colin Blackwell, Brandon Tanev. These guys all had like career seasons. Jared McCann, Jamie Alexiak's just getting better. Adam Larson finally getting out of Edmonton. Like, they have good players. They definitely could use a couple more, especially a forward to tie it all together. But like, that's still going to be a pretty good team.
Yeah, I totally agree. It seems like the reverse of the Canucks strategy where they're trying to take on big name, once great players and try and rejuvenate them. But so I really respect the way Seattle are doing it. A little bit jealous, definitely. But yeah. I think overall impressive. And what did you think of the show itself, like in terms of how they did with the live event?
I thought it was really cool. It was a really cool display of the city. I mean, I hadn't really been out here yet at the time, so I thought it was cool to see all that. And I'm sure for people who have been there their whole lives, it was really cool to see their city on TV like that in a hockey context. Like, I can't even imagine how cool that must have been for everyone. And it was cool to see like the players out there. Like, one thing that I find really cool about being a beat reporter here, and we saw this during expansion, like the media and everyone covering the team, like, we're really introducing not only this team to this market, but some like kind of the sport of hockey and kind of the NHL itself to a lot of people. So I thought that was a really cool showcase of the city to an audience that, like, you have hockey people who don't really know much about Seattle, and you have some Seattle people who don't really follow hockey that much, and now they really want to. So I thought that was a really cool like combination of that.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought they kind of did just enough of the cheesy tourist stuff. They brought in, NFL. I had never heard of most of the people making these picks, but like, I'm sure like
cheesy tourist stuff. So far when I've been out here, I've been doing like all the touristy stuff. I think you have to.
I think you have to too. Like, I've been to Seattle maybe 10 times since living in Vancouver, and I still love, Pike Place Market and the Space Needle. So I think I'm all for it.
Space Needle for the first time this weekend, and I thought it was the coolest.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's cool. We have the Harbour Tower in Vancouver, and it's really not that tall. So like, I'm impressed by any tall building. I don't know what that says about me. But yeah, like, big week of hockey continued with the entry draft. We'll get into some other issues with that later on. But were you happy with the Matty Beniers pick? And was that like pretty much what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, he was like the consensus number 2 pick. And for me, I love to see a Massachusetts boy out here. But like, I mean, more the power to Michigan and a program they're building over there that they had so many top picks like that. But yeah, he's going to be a good player for them. He's immediately going to be a top prospect in their organization, which is really cool. And I think made the right choice going back to college and getting another year in. We've seen guys before make that jump too early, and it doesn't really work. So that was a good pick. I thought Riker Evans, their second round pick, kind of came out of nowhere, but they've had a long time to do their scouting, right, especially for this draft. So I'm kind of going to take their word on things for now.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't think any consensus existed in the top 10, never mind beyond the first round. But yeah, as you say, they've kind of built a good team there in terms of scouting. So they probably know what they're doing. But yeah, no shock that it was confirmed this week or last week that Matty Beniers is going back to school. When do you think we'll see him? Like, do you think we'll see him like become a star right out of camp next year, or how do you see his development going? I know it's tough to predict, but how do you see it going in the next couple of years?
A team like Michigan that has so many guys who could go to the NHL or be a part of an NHL organization in the next couple of years, I think a lot of it's kind of going to do with what Owen Power does, because that really goes with how that program goes. And if they have a chance to all come back and be really good, maybe they do take another shot at it. But other than that, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Beniers at the end of this college season sign, because that burns one of his entry-level deal years as well, and that's only to his benefit. So I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. But again, I think in a case like this where Michigan has almost like a super team, it might be more of a team-oriented thing than what we usually see.
Yeah, I mean, I think we discussed this last week briefly with John Barr, but a lot of these kids have not had a proper college experience yet. If they've been in college, they haven't had people at their games. They haven't had anything like what they would usually have in school. So rejoining a super Michigan team to like take a run at the championship seems like a smart move, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you see a team in college have that much star power? I mean, we've seen it with BU, BC, but never like that concentrated. So some of that speaks to the quality of this year's draft class, but really, like, it's still an incredible opportunity, and you definitely want to take it if you're someone like Beniers.
Exactly. Yeah. I think obviously there's been, talking down of the draft class or whatever, but I think that what it has done is created this weird like year of a super college team because they're maybe between the college and NHL level.
For sure.
Well, just to sort of round up Kraken talk, what can we expect from Kraken? Like, how fast do you see this team growing and developing? It's definitely not Vegas. They haven't had the opportunity to dupe as many GMs maybe as Vegas had. We're probably not going to see them, get to a Stanley Cup final their first year. But yeah, how do you sort of see them panning out?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's predicting like a Vegas like debut, like you said. But to be fair, no one really saw Vegas coming either. So
true.
Who's to say? They're obviously playing in a weaker division outside of the Golden Knights. I mean, a few of those teams like Edmonton, a few people think the Kings might be okay. But other than that, like, I see the Kraken as a second or a third seed, like kind of easily, barring anything wild for them. So that's a team that I would expect to be in the playoffs year one. Like I said, their roster by no means is bad. They have some guys who their ceiling is kind of ahead of them still. So I don't think it's ever a safe bet to rely on guys exceeding what they've done in the past, but they have a lot of guys who are projected to do just that. So I think this is a team that fans will get excited about. I think they're going to have a pretty distinct identity early on. And I think they'll definitely be competitive. It's kind of rough to start the year with 5 consecutive road games. That's a tough way to start the year before a home debut. Who knows what that's going to look like. But hey, maybe that's a chance for them to build some energy too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, no offense taken on the weak Pacific Division, by the way.
It just is.
It just is, like, and I think Canucks really saw and suffered from it last year. It wasn't their only problem by any means, but yeah, definitely you could see how weak the Pacific Division was when they went from like struggling to just nowhere when playing with teams with more like offensive firepower, because Canucks look a little better this year up front, probably weaker at the back end. Yeah, how do you see Canucks going? Just like, do you think this is like bottom out type year, or do you think they'll recover slightly?
I think it partially depends on the rest of the division because we don't know what direction Calgary is going in. They could be doing worse. Anaheim has some young players, but no one's really projecting them to do much of anything either. The Coyotes, they're in another division now.
No.
I always keep forgetting that the Coyotes.
No, I know. It's a strange one. Yeah.
As soon as I said it, I'm like, no, the Coyotes are in the Central now, actually. But they're a mess. I'll just throw that out there anyways. But yeah, in the Pacific, for the Canucks, it really depends. Obviously, they've been in this weird, like, transitional type of period. It feels like for a while, like, they had their cap issues. Like you mentioned, their defense had a rough go of it at times too. So I'm not like sitting here expecting the Canucks to be a playoff team, but I also don't think they're the worst team in that division. And I don't think they have the potential to be a worst team in that division. I think there's going to be at least 2 teams worse than them almost no matter what. They have some talent. Maybe they make a run. I still just don't really see them as there right now, though. I think last year kind of did a number on them.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, you say transitional phase. I think circling the drain might be a better way to put it, but we're trying to be positive because, we're getting accused sometimes of being a bit negative on this podcast. So we're trying to be positive. Like, Jim has gone all in.
In that case, they're not the Anaheim Ducks.
They're not the Anaheim Ducks. There we go. Like, I'll take it. I'll take that line. Yeah. We've decided since Jim Benning has gone all in on the playoffs to save his job, we're also going to do that. So, team playoffs, baby. Here we go. But yeah, no, that's great. I think that's it for like Kraken specific questions, but we'll take a super short break and then we'll be back and talk a little bit more about hockey culture in general.
take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So yeah, just to talk about hockey culture, I would say, to put it nicely, it's not been the greatest, most progressive summer in NHL's history, but, maybe that's me expecting too much. If we start at the entry draft with the Montreal Canadiens selecting 31st overall Logan Mailloux after his conviction of sex crime of sharing illicit photos without permission back in Sweden. Am I wrong to be disappointed in this? Should I have expected it?
I mean, it's tough. I feel like it's only human nature a lot of the time to at least hope for the best and see the good in people. But hockey obviously makes it difficult. And this has been really a rough off season, especially just all the problems in hockey culture really coming to the forefront publicly more than ever. I was surprised by it. And again, maybe that's being naive as well, especially once he tried to denounce himself from the draft. What's shocking to me about the whole thing is, and what I keep coming back to is the Canadians really didn't have to. He's not a guy who was even really projected to go in at slots. So they really did this on purpose. I think it backfired. I think they really didn't expect the kind of backlash that they did get, which goes to show you what they expect out of hockey culture as well, to just kind of assume that it would be fine. And the thing again, I don't know why they expect it to work. You look, the whole Mitchell Miller thing was the Coyotes last year and how that really didn't work out for anyone in the NHL at least. So you really wonder why they believed it would work this time. And I mean, I guess when you're never really held accountable for your behavior, as a lot of people in hockey aren't, you start to just kind of believe you're immune to that stuff. I think that's really the answer to a lot of this stuff, but disappointing for sure. And again, just kind of befuddling because it's not really going to work. So it just doesn't really seem worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Obviously, they expected sort of some kind of reaction, hence their prepared statement, but perhaps they didn't expect it to be, of this volume. And they certainly didn't have the answers prepared, how they were going to help him, mature or anything. So, yeah, I guess it was bad planning on their part. And obviously, Marc Bergevin's his name has come up in other unfortunate ways with the Chicago Blackhawks scandal. How have you seen their handling of that, and also just the league's handling of it, or kind of lack of doing anything? Is that something that you see as a turning point? They're gonna have to change that, or do you see it as the way it's always been?
I mean, based on especially the way it's been handled so far, the fact that it's not a bigger scandal is almost a credit to the league that people just kind of expect to be disappointed at this point. There really isn't enough of a push for answers on this entire thing. And I get it's a tough position for a lot of people, but it's also again, the word is just disappointing because I'm personally not expecting anything good to come out of this. Hopefully there's some change. Again, I feel I'm generally an optimist, and I'm I hope that things get better from here. But things don't get better without action. And what is action? Tangible action? Is it boycotting season tickets? Is it changing coverage up? I don't really know the answer to that because it's a lot more nuanced than just demanding one reaction or another. But it's disappointing overall the way it's been handled, especially from a league level, the way they backed off. But can't wait to release a statement about Evander Kane gambling or whatever.
Right.
It's just really telling how much they want to avoid it. And usually these big monolithic, not just leagues, but companies, they usually do a pretty good job at that because it's just power structures and all that type of stuff. So I mean, I'm not like expecting anything to change overnight here. The only thing I think we can hope for is some sort of tangible action, some sort of organization in the coming years that really makes a difference to prevent stuff like this from happening again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess disappointing is definitely the word, but we've kind of seen this time and time again, the NHL kind of catering to their more conservative fan base. But to me, that's why hockey, I think, is like the best of the North American sports to watch. But it will always be more niche because it's just leaving behind like this great chunk of fan base because they don't see themselves in the game.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, cherry point. And I guess finally, just to tie it off, we'd talk a little bit about the Carolina Hurricanes, who, this week have done their revenge offer sheet, which honestly, like, take that in isolation. I enjoyed. I think offer sheets are funny. I think they should be done more, and like NHL GMs are kind of backward about it. But do you see that as like a cynical move to sort of recast their like brand as that kind of fun hockey team after like a tough go of things with like signing Tony DeAngelo, thinking about signing Vatanen?
Almost overthinking it because like I don't think they're signing a guy to an offer sheet so that we forget about Tony DeAngelo. I think they're signing a guy to an offer sheet because they want him. And I think the petty aspect of it is just kind of like a part of it. So like I don't think they would attempt to go sign a guy from the Canadiens to an offer sheet if the Canadiens hadn't already done that. But I do think they genuinely were like, this is a good hockey player, let's sign him. And they already felt like, quote unquote, disrespected by that organization anyway. So they're like, might as well do it here. I don't feel like what they do on social media is like automatically a reaction to Tony DeAngelo. I think social media people have their jobs and they're doing their jobs regardless of what hockey operations is doing. Unfortunately for everyone, none of it really feels cute and quirky anymore because of hockey operations. So I mean, I think like the DeAngelo thing, that's a hockey move from Doug Waddle, Rod Brindamore. Like they made this choice and they believe it'll help their hockey team. And I don't think they really care about the social repercussions of that.
Right.
I don't think the social repercussions are enough to make an impact because like people are going to continue to have their season tickets. And I think like demanding people not doing that's also like, again, a little less than nuanced. Like, it's just unfortunate. Like Tony DeAngelo also isn't the worst person in hockey. Like he's not a good dude at all. But there's also like every hockey team has some like not good dudes, and to be like, oh, the Hurricanes are worse than everyone else because they signed him is just like that's pretty convenient for your fandom of your team to point that out. But like I don't think they're signing Kotkaniemi to a an offer sheet to be like forget about Tony DeAngelo. I think it's just an unfortunate side effect of like it really comes off as that. And I guess like they'd be happy if we did all forget about that. They'd love it if we all became Tony DeAngelo fans and we're like, oh, screw all the social stuff. Like he's a good hockey player and we love that. I'm sure they would love that. But I don't think they're making hockey moves in hopes of people on Twitter forgetting about stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think you're probably right that I'm like overworking this a little in my head. But yeah, and they're just
everyone's saying it, and it's like they're not making hockey moves to make us forget something else. I mean, they'll be happy if we do.
Yeah.
But they're making hockey moves because, I mean, these hockey guys, they're so singular minded of let's do the hockey thing. That's really what you're thinking about. And that's why these poor decisions happen is because they're that singular minded.
Totally. I think that's a really great way to put it. And I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. But if, social media and fan pressure and like reporters like you, like Rick Westhead and all these people actually commenting on the issues in the game, keep talking about it, that might be a way for slow progression to happen.
For sure. I mean, progression doesn't happen overnight, but it doesn't happen from not saying anything either. Like, there's nothing wrong with pointing out that signing Tony DeAngelo is a slap in the face to a lot of people. Yeah. And as much as I'm sure that Hurricanes aren't sitting there being like, good, we hope we pissed you off. They're sitting there being like, we want to be good at hockey and we genuinely think this will help and we just don't care about how you feel. We're doing this. It's still not okay to completely disregard that entire aspect. But again, the Hurricanes aren't the only team to sign a guy with less than acceptable morals, and they're not the only team that would have signed him. So it's worth pointing out this isn't in a vacuum. This is a cultural issue, and the dismantling of that culture starts from pointing out what is wrong with moves like that.
Definitely, yeah. They're just the latest bad news story. It's definitely not the worst, the first or the last. So I guess we just keep talking about it and hope things change.
No, for sure.
Yep. Cool. Well, we will take another super short break and then we'll come back and we'll just give some final thoughts. So we talked a bit about at the beginning about what, your writing life might look like as a beat reporter. Do you get any sense of what the season will look like for reporters, for staff, and for fans as we kind of navigate this post-COVID, during COVID world?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of waiting for the NHL to say regulations. It's kind of been a team's choice right now. Like we've seen Calgary and Winnipeg ask for vaccinations, or the Sharks said they'll do whatever the city or the county wants. We haven't really gotten word in Seattle yet, but I mean, I'm coming from Boston where they're pretty stringent on a lot. And man, like the regulations in Seattle make it feel a lot safer than a lot of other places. So you would hope that leads to a lot of like really good safety measures as well, but they haven't told us. I think everyone's kind of waiting for direction from the league right now. And with training camp around a corner, I would expect we get that pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think in BC, the Canucks were going to say something, and then the province, their health regulations kind of jumped the gun anyway, and vaccine mandate for anything social, anything with the public. So I think we'll probably see that around the league. Do you have any sense of players and how their thoughts are coming in terms of vaccinations, and if they have any concerns on that regard?
Not so much lately. I mean, I feel like, and this might just be because the hockey season hasn't been going on for a while, I feel like we've seen less of a presence of hockey players talking about being vaccinated. So we've seen less players speaking out against vaccines. So so far that's good. Hopefully that's a good sign and not a neutral one. So
right.
We'll see. I don't really have a sense right now. I don't have anything confirmed for the Kraken, but from what I've heard based on a few things, it seems good. So there is that. So we'll see if all of that is official or not coming up.
Cool. Yeah, I hope so too. I hope you're right on that one. Well, on a less serious note, maybe I'll just ask you a couple of Seattle questions about your new town. So far, I know you're a coffee nut. Has there been a new coffee place you've discovered, or are you just really happy to be in the home of Starbucks?
Starbucks is the only thing near me, so that's usually where I go, and it's pumpkin season. But I really like Cherry Street in downtown when I've been down there. I'm always open to more places. I'm trying to get to a cat cafe in the next couple of weeks too.
Yes,
that's what I'm really excited for.
Yeah, actually, Seattle has some great ones. I wanted to go to the one in Capitol Hill. There's a cat cafe there, so that's meant to be pretty good. But that's all I have.
That might be the one I end up going to.
Yeah. Any bars that you've discovered or are wanting to try out?
I went to Angry Beaver the other night.
Oh yeah,
that was awesome. I loved it. I want to keep going back there. That's been the real standout one so far.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot about Angry Beaver from the Sound of Hockey guys. I think that's definitely got a strong hockey tradition. So I'm glad it's not one of those things that's gone away at all. So that's great to hear.
That's awesome. It was incredible.
Awesome. Have you gone to explore any of the Kraken rink or the training rink, or seen how is everything good to go? Do you know
none of it's open yet. The practice facility is almost done. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. I believe we're going to hear a lot about the practice facility in the next coming days or so. I went down to see the stadium the other day, and there's still a lot of construction there, but it's on pace to be ready for the regular season opener October 23rd. So I'm excited to see what the inside of these places look like.
Definitely. Well, as Canucks fans, as like tricky as the season is going to be, one thing we are looking forward to is the rivalry. So we are also excited about the Seattle Kraken season and see how this team is going to grow. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us on C4. It's great to get to know our neighbors down to the south, and we're really excited to see what the team comes up with and what you come up with at the Seattle Times.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm super looking forward to going to Vancouver at some point this season.
Yes, I really hope that sooner rather than later that, we can cross the border safely and make those road trips. Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to a few beers at the Angry Beaver when we're allowed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so just a few housekeeping things. On our side, we're going back to weekly episodes. So you'll get to hear from me and Chris next week, and we'll be going weekly through the start of the season and build up to this crazy Canucks season. But yeah, make sure you join us on Discord. That's discord.io/C4 podcast. We're at the C4 podcast on the Twitter and on Facebook. I'm at A4Scythe03 on Twitter, and Marissa is at Marissa_Ingemi on Twitter, and you can find her work in the Seattle Times this coming season. And with all that said, we out.